How's my hair, Scott? What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Pam, and today I am doing a little requested list type video. I'm going to talk to you about my 6 favorite common or relatively easy to find houseplants. 2020 had a bit of a pushback against the whole rare plant thing. We found a lot of people were real frustrated with like YouTubers overusing the term to try to get clicks or whatever. You know, whether they had rare plants or not in their videos, it seemed like everybody was kind of getting sick of seeing that. And they were getting sick of some of the flexing, and of course by the end of the year we were all really sick of the price inflation and just the craziness that has gone on in just a year's time. Now, plants were popular last year, the year before that, even 3 years before that, but not like they were this year. So in the wake of all of this rare plant pushback, a lot of us, especially with most of our time being indoors this year, unless we were, you know, frontline workers that are busting ass, thank you, by the way, a lot of us were home with our, you know, fairly common houseplants, just trying to look at them with more appreciative eyes. So I think this is a great tag, and I'm happy to jump in on it. I tried to pick some things that, while they're common, they're not, I don't see them raved about. What the fuck just happened there? I tried to pick some things that I don't always see praised, as well as a couple that they're as common as it gets, but I just love them. And I'm going to open it up with, not with what I've got in front of me here, but with the plants in the other room that I didn't want to move. I'm going to cut in some footage because they really work together. And that is my Monstera deliciosa, the plain old, just quintessential houseplant, the indoor jungle mascot, if you will. And I love this plant, especially the way it is stacked against my Pachira aquatica. Sometimes these are called Chinese money plants as well. But that Pachira aquatica came to me in a 6-inch pot, and my mom gave it to me, I think on Mother's Day, probably 7 years ago. And it is about 6 feet plus tall at this point, and it is just this very silly Seussian kind of tree, and I love it so much. And I just don't see a lot of people talking about these on PlantTube. I don't know if it's because they can be a little fussy and maybe people lose them, but they are extremely common, and that plant got that big in just a handful of years. It doesn't really feel like that long since I've had that plant, so you can have a literal tree in your house in like 6-7 years. That's pretty cool. I call that one Twiggy. She did used to have the 3 braided trunks, but the other 2 died off, and that one trunk just stayed and just kind of kept getting taller. So it was definitely a bit of an abused plant because it was with me in the years that I had a lot of plants, but just not really any curiosity about those plants or how to best take care of them. I just sort of did what seemed intuitive just from watching my mom have plants when I was growing up. Obviously, it was enough to keep it alive, so. It does throw a little bit of a tantrum in the winter time sometimes and throw some leaves on the ground. I may end up moving it near the grow lights in the other room just to see how it does over the winter and see if maybe I can mitigate that winter, you know, shock, I guess. But then there's the Monstera deliciosa, which I have several plants of. They're just big, beautiful plants, and you really, if you're gonna have an indoor jungle, it's just like, it's the centerpiece to me of the indoor jungle. I mean, I just love that plant, and I don't know how anybody could not. Let's move on past those big babies into some of these guys that I have in front of me. So I will go next with one of these, which is, I love this plant. And I know that people do have a little bit of a hard time with them, but I feel like once they get acclimated, they are divine. And that is my Ruby Cascade Peperomia. And you can see it is just grown like crazy, and she is beautiful to drape and let trail down things, and it just reminds me of like fairies, and it's just the coolest plant. And I got this really beautiful planter for it. Yes, this was on the Peckham's greenhouse tour that I put up not too long ago. I got that plant there, and despite Peperomia's not loving to be repotted. This one actually handled it really well, which I was very surprised about because it is a bit of a delicate plant, but I found if you give it some good light and just leave it alone, it grows so fast, and just one day you just look at it and it's crazy. So I love this plant. She is beautiful. The red stems and the back of the leaves, or the abaxial side of the leaves, is red, and I feel like I'm beating the crap out of this just by touching it, so I can't wait to put it back. Okay, so next up we will address this big mama that is right here. I just had to give her a bit of a dust because it is the dustiest plant in this house. I mean, you have to attack it with some neem and like a nice soft microfiber cloth or a brush or something, because just the velvetyness of the leaves just holds on to dust. These guys, I hear a lot of smack talk about the Maranta, and I swear to God, I think it's because you're all getting the other kind. Now, I'm certain that people have killed these before, and I'm just teasing, but I really think that as far as Marantas go, if you are a Maranta murderer, this one is the way to go. And this is the lemon lime variety. It grows like crazy. It couldn't be happier. I mean, look at it. It doesn't really even have any brown tips. And this guy just sits in my bathroom. It gets really no special attention. It's lucky if it gets watered once a week because, frankly, your girl's been neglectful in that department. And it just hangs in there, and it's never had an issue. I've propagated it a bunch. There are pieces living all over New England and beyond, I think. So it's just such a beautiful plant, and I love this one so much more than the variety with the red in it. It's just less garish. Garish is the word I think of when I see that one with the red. I don't love it. And it's also just the perfect plant for layering. Once you get into collecting houseplants and you really start moving them around your house, you will probably almost instinctively start layering your plants. You know, you'll have like these almost like floral arrangements where you have, what do they call it? The pillar, the filler, and the spiller, or something like that. So you'll have like the tall element, and then something that will fill in some space, and then something that trails down, sort of makes this really natural layering. And this plant is just so great for that because of its really interesting growth pattern. It's such a bizarre little guy. When it gets going, and I've trimmed it so much that it's hard, you know, I can't really show you how cool it gets, but it starts to like like outwards and then spill down, but like also outwards. It's a really cool plant. So I think that visually and care-wise, this is just a great house plant, and I think more people should get their hands on them. And if you know anybody with one, ask for some cuttings because they propagate really easily and they grow really quickly. So you can, you know, make up for the cuttings pretty fast. So I know these can be spider mite bait as well. I've not had any problems with this particular plant, but I do use predator mites for the most part. I'm a little behind on my application currently, so playing with fire right now. Okay, next up I have a common Hoya offering for you because I am a Hoya ass bitch. I love Hoyas. They are wonderful. The more I get, the more I need. There's no end to the obsession. And here I have probably my favorite of the common Hoya, and that is the Lacunosa, or the cinnamon scented Hoya. And while I would argue that I don't think it smells like cinnamon, it does smell utterly divine when it flowers. So I've had this little beauty since it was a small little cutting from Logi's, and it has flowered for me in probably the year, maybe a little more than a year that I've had it. It has flowered for me 3 times, and it is currently working on flowering for me again. I don't know if you can see the peduncle there. Let me see if I can give you the beauty shot. Oh yeah, there we go. There's quite a few of those on here. So she is just such a pretty plant, and they're white blooms, really, really, really beautiful, little button-like white blooms, and they get a little nectary and drippy, but they smell so good. And Hoya tend to be pollinated by moths, so you'll probably smell that smell more in the evening, and then in the daytime it's wild. It's like you can almost barely smell it at all. A lot of the times that's how I know this plant is blooming, because the blooms will usually be facing the window or something and I won't be able to see them unless, and then I'll smell it and I'll be like, oh, one of the Hoyas is blooming, I gotta go find it. I also find this is really easy to propagate as well. So next up I have a very cute and very thirsty, so she's a little flimsy right now, so you'll have to forgive her, or forgive me really, because it's my fault. I have a Peperomia quadriangularis, and I freaking love this plant. I actually have a viewer to thank for me ending up with this plant because I saw it in the store. It is a Costa Farms plant. So I don't really buy from Costa Farms anymore, but I do, you know, a couple of years ago I did, so a lot of my plants are from there. Anyway, so this is the Peperomia quadriangularis, and I happened to snap this guy up at Home Depot or Lowe's or something, and this guy is so cute, and it took the longest time for this to recover. It was actually a very full basket of hanging plant goodness, and I brought it home and it was waterlogged like crazy, like the plants usually are, you know. You guys know, I'd say it has taken the better part of a year to truly recover. I let this hang in my east window for quite some time, and it was doing really well. And since I've put it in the room with the LED grow lights, it is going crazy. There's tons of tiny little new growths, which I will show you. I don't know if you can see the tip or this guy right there. See those little growths right there? Almost all the tips have some little leaves coming in, and it's also like the soil that it's in is like rock hard, and I need to get it out of here. I'm so terrified to repot this thing because it took so long to recover, but so, you know, we'll all just enjoy it now while it's fine. But it's just the cutest little Peperomia, and I just love it so much. And I don't see a lot of people talking about it, so I think it's a great little plant. And I paid $16.98 for this. Again, I think I got it at Home Depot or Lowe's. So that means if I got it there, that you should probably be able to find it fairly easy on Etsy or from smaller plant shops if you prefer to go there, which I do. So if you can't tell, I was in kind of like a trailing mode when I was picking out these plants, but so that's it. That's these are the plants that stuck out when I took a walk around my house when I was looking for some common plants that are also just really cool, really interesting, and I always feel that little like when I look at them, you know. So thank you to everybody that requested this video and tagged me in their videos, and this was really fun to just walk around and appreciate my more common plants. So I hope you found some common plant inspiration, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye!
Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? That's a bet, right?